Hello everyone, I hope you're all keeping well, healthy and happy. In this video I'm going to be talking about the Global Genome Vault. Now, most people don't even know that this thing exists, okay? And what's exceptionally troubling about it is that the scope of this thing is, as the name implies, global. What is it all about? Well, a couple of years ago, back in 2015, two corporations, Vivos and Arrayet Corporation, got together and decided to provide this service, at least that's what they called it, a service through which they would ask people to volunteer their DNA for storage in a vault. Okay? And Arrayet were going to supply the blood card technology to work alongside Vivos for this project. In fact, let me describe it to you in their own words. Vivos offers an impervious, impenetrable and permanent DNA storage vault able to provide virtually every man, woman and child on Earth a safe and secure nuclear blast-proof underground shelter to store their DNA. Now, there's a really big problem with this. Okay, and I'm sure that you've already managed to grasp what that is. The big question is, how do you acquire the DNA of 7.2 billion people on this earth? That's the first question. Right? And no one's asking that question either. Most people, as I say, don't even know this project exists. So, taking that into account, you really do have to wonder, don't you? Because there are areas in the third world, rural areas, that can't be accessed or reached. How are those people going to volunteer their DNA? The second major question about all of this, by the way, is how are these projects and these corporations going to make their money? Because if you take a look at their websites, they're offering this service for free. Now, as I've told you before in many videos that I've made previously on other subjects, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Typically, whenever somebody's offering you something for free, there's a sales gimmick involved in it somewhere along the line, isn't there? Right? You've got to pay for it somehow. So where are these projects getting their money from? If it's from the government, then they're not actual corporations, are they? And they do have intricate links to government departments, by the way, otherwise they couldn't operate. Obviously, there are laws governing how DNA is stored. Right? So, who's funding them? And what is this ultimate goal which they have? That's the real big question. Right? Now, Vivos' public position on this vault is that it relies on a voluntary system, if you like, voluntary submission of DNA by people who want to give them their blood samples or DNA or whatever else. And they'll just store it privately for free for you in this vault. But here's the problem. If you look at any of the scandals which have emerged around hospital services or the National Health Service in the UK, for example, or the insurance companies in the US and the medical professionals there, the number of times that they've mishandled patients' data, for example, and not just data, but their actual blood samples or whatnot as well. I mean, the number of times things have gone wrong is astronomical, right? And yet these people, we're told that they're going to magically somehow manage to avoid all of that. You have to wonder. You really do have to wonder. And obviously there's a lot of crossover between government departments and international NGOs. And also the United Nations World Health Organization. Okay? So, as I say, where are they going to get these 7.2 billion samples of DNA? Or is it possible, and I'm just throwing this out there as a hypothetical that's not actually a hypothetical, but as a hypothetical, let's say, what if the United Nations and various governments in the world have been involved in the collection of blood and DNA samples for decades, for what I think are nefarious purposes, but we'll leave that aside for the time being. What if they've been engaged in that? What if they've already been storing it underground for years in underground vaults? Now, I have been saying that privately to people for a very, very long time. Okay? And it's just interesting that this project is actually now being made public. I don't think it's inconceivable that various health organizations might have been providing these types of corporations, or might well provide in the future these types of corporations, samples of DNA. Because think about it, governments have already built up DNA databases. In the UK, there was legislation about this that was passed very recently. This, of course, was related to the national crime computers and what have you, the databases there, but also in terms of the health service as well. So they've already kind of been quietly trying to make this a little bit public, right? And in the United States, the same thing has been happening in different ways. So the big question here is, when are people going to wake up and realize that their DNA is going to be used to identify them? I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Gattaca. Okay? The vision of that dystopian future isn't actually fictional at all anymore. The line between fact and fiction is blurred so much now. Science fiction and science fact. Right? This is the thing. What's to stop somebody profiling somebody else on the basis of their DNA? There is my big question. What is to stop somebody profiling another individual based on their DNA? Now keep in mind, by the way, most of the science when it comes to genetics is still in its infancy. We're just getting to grips right now with epigenetics. Right? And there's a lot of nonsensical idiots out there that would bring up this garbage about how everything is defined, everything about you or everything about me is defined by your DNA, by your genetics. It is not. I'm sorry, but that's plainly nonsense. There is not a single serious geneticist that would ever argue that, because there is an inherent interlink between nature and nurture. Your environment has a whole lot to do with it. And epigenetics, of course, this new field of study, is now beginning to see that, hang on a second, our environment also shapes our DNA. So these determinists, these geneticist determinists, I would call them eugenicists, are advocating for people really subtly right now to be judged by their DNA. Now that's pretty messed up. And of course, these types of projects could be used for those purposes. Could they not? It's just something I wanted to bring to your attention so that you know that it exists. So that you understand that the ultimate plan in the long-term strategy is to do this. This one world government is going to assess people based upon their genetic capabilities. Now, that's not fiction. I'm not saying that as hyperbole. I'm telling you that is actually going to happen. And this project is a step in that direction. So you'd better start paying attention to what is going on around you. Because too many aren't. Okay, they don't understand that they are quietly being programmed by certain people with certain agendas to adopt eugenicist ideals, which are fundamentally satanic at their core. Anyway, I'll leave it there for this video, but I just wanted to, as I say, inform you about this. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Take good care of yourselves, and God bless all of you.